Muhammadu Buhari, a retired Major General of the Nigerian Army and former head of state, is a different kettle of fish to different people across the strata of Nigeria. The average northern elite and the traditional institution see Buhari suspiciously as a betrayer and will not trust him 1 inch with power. Retired military and police officers see him as their enemy number 1. To the Christians in the far north and the middle belt, Buhari's name connotes Boko Haram and Islamic fundamentalism. When one moves to southern part of Nigeria, the story of General Muhammadu Buhari is that of a tyrant who murdered innocent young men under retroactive laws and locked up journalists for performing their lawful duties. The average southerner will remind you that General Buhari at his Petroleum Trust Fund PTF tenure used the oil wells from the south to develop the north at the expense of southern Nigeria. With his popularity at the lowest ebb among southern Nigerians and northern Christians as it is, the question to ask would be, is General Muhammadu Buhari a desperate power seeker or an unforgiving extremist? So, what exactly qualifies General Muhammadu Buhari as a Democrat today? The fact that Buhari is being rebranded by the APC apparatus and has consequently toned down his extremist views about North, South and Muslim Christians of the country for political correctness does not make him any less a religious extremist. General Muhammadu Buhari would like to be Nigeria's head of state once again, but this he can no longer achieve through the barrel of a gun. The only route now open to him is through a democratic process. This is the reason he now conveniently fashions himself as a Democrat. It is merely a means to an end, no more, no less. Only in Nigeria would a man with his track record, who came to power through a military coup that illegally overthrew a democratic government, now be acclaimed as a Democrat. It is on record that General Buhari's military regime is the only one in Nigeria's history that failed to promulgate a program for return to civilian rule. As self-imposed head of state, Buhari had no regard for human rights. Immediately he seized power, he announced that he would tamper with the press. Soon, the infamous Decree No. 4 was promulgated, which made even the publication of the truth a punishable offense. Decree No. 2 of 1984 empowered the Buhari-Idiagbon administration to arrest and detain anybody indefinitely without trial and without legal reprieve. Under this cover, Buhari jailed innocent journalists including Tunde Thompson and Nduka Irabo. He abolished civil liberties, promulgated retroactive decrees enabling him to kill Nigerians through jungle justice, proscribed civil society organizations and professional groups, and exercised absolute power. General Buhari is a northern regional champion. As head of state in the 1980s, his government was unapologetically northern. It was the only regime in Nigeria's history headed by two northerners. When he seized power, Buhari put Shagari, the northern head of state he overthrew, under house arrest. He then jailed Alex Ekweme, the southern vice president. You may well ask, what makes Shagari less culpable for the misdeeds of the Second Republic than his number 2 man? The simple fact was that Buhari was Fulani, as was Shagari, but Ekweme was Igbo. We will recall that in 2008, at the 10th anniversary of the death of Abacha, Buhari declared to the consternation of all Nigerians that Abacha was neither corrupt nor a thief. He did not steal Nigeria's money, he declared sternly, with military fiat. This is despite the fact that several countries had returned hundreds of millions of dollars to Nigeria as part of Abacha's stolen loot. At the height of the Sharia debate during the Obasanjo administration, Buhari declared Muslims should vote for fellow Muslims who can defend their faith. This was politically suicidal for a man seeking national office. He became an advocate for implementation of Sharia all over Nigeria, in which he announced on 27th August 2001, "I will continue to show openly and inside me the total commitment to Sharia movement that is sweeping all over Nigeria. God willing, we will not stop the agitation for the total implementation of Sharia in Nigeria." His threat during the campaign for the 2011 elections incited widespread violence in the north after he lost. His supporters went on a rampage, looting and killing, in spite of the fact that, by all accounts, the elections were adjudged the most free and fair in the history of Nigeria's current democratic experiment. By the time the mayhem had subsided, over 1,000 people had been slaughtered in cold blood and some 65,000 displaced. Forgetting that a statement made in Hausa would readily be translated into English, Buhari later declared unapologetically in a BBC interview, "If what happened in 2011 should again happen in 2015, by the grace of God, the dog and the baboon will all be soaked in blood." These are the tokens of an irresponsible politician whose ambitions for power supersede the national interest. Who then are the dogs and baboons that Buhari has in mind to soak in blood if and when he loses yet again come 2015? Just last year, when the state of emergency was declared in parts of the northeast to tame the menace of the devilish and bloodthirsty Boko Haram, which has severally broken its own worst record of human carnage, Buhari stated in an interview that he was against the state of emergency and military action, which he described as a grave injustice to the north. According to him in his lamentation, unlike the special treatment the federal government gave to the Niger Delta militants, the Boko Haram members were being killed and their houses demolished. Lest we forget, the same General Buhari was once nominated by Boko Haram as their chief negotiator, even though he reluctantly declined. The question is, why did the murderous terror sect choose Buhari of all people, a former head of state of Nigeria, as their negotiator from a motley crowd of qualified ethno-religious champions who believe that power must be absolute or that power must be dominant? Perhaps an answer to this question is to think that Boko Haram trusted him more to represent their interest in ways no other northern negotiator can. Without a doubt, Buhari has support in the north. Sadly, however, this popularity does not span over the northern elites. That precisely remains his undoing at the center. The more he has been identified as a northern champion, the less attractive he has become as a national choice. Even in the north, his support base is limited to the Muslim population. He also does not appeal to northern Christians. History matters. Does Decree 20 ring a bell? If not, then perhaps the names of these three youths, Lawal Ojuolakwe, Bernard Ogedengbe, and Bartholomew Owo, 26, do. To put it quite plainly, one of those three, Ogedengbe, was executed for a crime that did not carry a capital forfeiture at the time it was committed. Records are not kept simply to assist the weakness of memory, but to operate as guides to the future. One thing that is certain, the South-South and South-East will not vote for Buhari in 2015. Not only that, there are no buyers for Buhari's sectarian politicians in the Southwest. No matter what Asiwaju Bola Tinubu might be telling him. We already had the template in 2011, when Buhari tried to sell himself, first by balancing his ticket with a Yoruba man, and then by making sure the Yoruba man is a Christian, a pastor no less. But it did just not wash. It did not work then, it will not work in 2015.